A very important block in Geometry Dash is the move trigger, and at first it may seem a little bit complicated, but once you get to know it a bit, it really isn't. So this is a guide on what the move trigger does. So first, just basically moving objects. You need to find something that you want to move, and that is a group. So say I want to move this block right here. I have to go edit group and then add any group that I want. Say I add group 9, for an example, it can be anything you want. Then I edit the move trigger and go into edit object, then I just keep that at 9. Now that'll work, technically. If I played the level, then that would work, but I don't have it set to move it at all. So I need to set that. If I move it 10 in any direction, then that will move it one block. So if I move it 1, that will be just 1/10 of a block, and 100, that will be 10 blocks. If I move it to X, 10 for example, then that will move it one block this way. As you can see, it moved it. However, what if I wanted to move it faster? Well, the move time I have set right now, or by default, is 0.50 seconds, or half a second. And if I wanted to move that faster, or if I wanted to do it all at once, then I could just do that by setting it to 0. Also, if you want it to go backwards, then what you can do is you can just go to a -10 or negative however much you want, and then that will just move it backwards or forwards. It does not matter how high up or down you put the move trigger, because as you can see, there's this little blue line right here, and any time you pass that, if you don't touch the move trigger, then it'll activate except for in a special case, which I will get to later. So now, what about easing? Normally, if I move it, I'll just give you an example, say I move it 20 blocks up with a move time of, I don't know, 0.44 seconds. That's close to 50. So as you can see, it moved 2 blocks up, but it just did that without like easing in or out, or without any of those filters. So for example, there's ease in out, which basically eases it in and out, as you can see there. That was just a bit smoother than before. And there's also just ease in, so it eases in and doesn't ease out, as you can see there. And then there's a whole ton more. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go over them all. And yeah, that's how that works. Okay, now what about use target? Well, this has this whole new interface called target position group ID. And that's basically if you want to move the block that you're going to move to any other block. So say I want to move this block to go to this block right here. So what I have to do is I have to edit that, so I go into edit of course, then click it. So I can click edit group, and then I'll just select any group for this. I'll do group 4 and press OK. And now for the edit group, or not edit group, edit object move trigger, if I do use target, then I can just put in that block ID, which is 4. Now, when I use it, this block will move all the way up to that one with any of the filters that I've had before, such as the easing in and out, and the time, and the target group ID. You can also set it to Y only, so it'll only go up and meet with that block on the Y axis, like so. And you can also set it to X axis. I'm not going to show what that is, though, because it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, for touch trigger. Normally, if you play a level play it like that, then you can't see triggers. But normally, if you've ever wondered how somebody puts a key, then they could have just used key settings, which I might do in a later video, I don't know. Or they could have also put a move trigger behind it. So, to do that, if you edit the move trigger, and then click touch triggered, like I have, the move trigger will only function if you touch it. So, for example, nothing happens because I didn't touch it. But if I jump in, then the thing that I've set it to happens. Normally, if you play a level, like normal, then nothing happens, yeah. But if I just redo it, I think I remember where it is. As you can see, I made it move upwards. It was very hard to tell, but I did. final thing for the move trigger is the option to have it spawn trigger. So what that basically does is it employs an entirely new trigger, the spawn trigger right here. And in case you don't know what a spawn trigger does, they're actually kind of confusing, but what it does is it basically activates a whole ton of triggers. So for example, say I have it set to group ID 3, I'll just say that as an example, and if I edit this and click edit group, then I can set this to edit group 3, and then that works. So now, if I hit the spawn trigger, then it'll do the move trigger no matter what. Except, thing is, I kind of messed up a bit, and then I forgot to actually put this one on spawn trigger. So, yeah, as you can see, it works when I go over the spawn trigger and not the move trigger. And the spawn trigger, it can do 2 triggers at once, no matter where they are, as long as they are in the right group. And I don't mean like set to this right group. I mean like this group, in the edit group, that one. So say, just as an example, I'll do another color trigger. I will not touch trigger, but I'll spawn trigger. And say I will change the background to red when it gets spawn triggered. I just have to edit object 3, then anytime the spawn trigger is activated, then it will activate both of these. They can be anywhere on the editor you want, just they have to have spawn trigger and they have to have the same thing. I'm just using a color trigger as an example, but you can just use a ton of move triggers or pulse triggers or whatever. Also, if you caught it, then there's a multi-trigger, and that basically means it can be done multiple times. Instead of just having one spawn trigger, you can have multiple. So if I just go like this, and then I just copy and paste it, then I just move it over like this, then that will do all of these the same. Again, it will repeat them. So this happens, and then I do it, and those happen again, except the thing is, well, background trigger was already red, so okay. Here's the one little last example. Change the background to white, and then here's the example. So it changes it to red, changes it to white, and then I go over the spawn trigger, which activates both of these again, changes the background to red, and it moves this block another 2 blocks up. And that's it. That's every single move trigger component that there is in Geometry Dash. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.